you have to come up with it in a way that where everybody wins, right? The client wins because they don't want to pay, they don't want to overpay, but you got to win as a business too and make what the profit that you need to make.
Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line.
Let's face it, you all hate bookkeeping. I don't blame you. But today, we're going to chat with a bookkeeper to see their view of how best to handle and automate your finances. Because without good books, everything's a mess and you don't know where your money is. And that is important. We're going to chat about everything from Profit First to best pricing practices to technology to make it all easier. At the end of the day, it's about ensuring you're profitable and the cash is flowing when you need it to. Miller Bradford is the owner of Up Accounting, which focuses on bookkeeping, bill pay, and payroll for small businesses. He loves helping clients streamline their financial operations by utilizing technology. Let's meet Miller and see how you can have better bookkeeping and finances. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Miller Bradford. It's great to have you join us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Most welcome. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Miller Bradford. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. And almost 2.5 years ago, I started my business. And we do bookkeeping, bill pay, payroll, work in progress reporting, stuff like that. And we work mostly with builders, but we also work with Chick-fil-A restaurants. And we also work with any small business right now. But we've got 4 employees now, looking to hire more. So it's been going well.
Out of curiosity, does Chick-fil-A behave differently than builders do?
They're actually pretty similar in that they're kind of hard to wrangle like builders are. They're kind of hard to they're kind of hard to control as a bookkeeper trying to be organized and, do things timely. Some Chick-fil-A's are better than others as far as getting us their receipts on time and, answering things we need. But it's actually kind of similar. We're always missing receipts and we're always needed. They'll have a lot of bills to pay, and Chick-fil-A's are probably better than builders at the end of the day, though, I would say. They're a little more organized than builders are.
That's not saying a lot, though, is it?
Chick-fil-A's they have a lot more going on. They've got, they could have 100 employees and a lot more sales, obviously, but it's not apples to apples. I'll say that.
No, and Chick-fil-A really knows how to run a well-oiled machine, at least from a delivery standpoint.
Yep.
And their stores have record sales volumes at the stores.
Right.
I don't know their profit margins. They're a private company, but I've got to believe they're pretty good and they know what they're doing because
they're not hurting. That's for sure. And I'll say this to your other question. I mean, they serve guests well. They didn't go to work at Chick-fil-A to do accounting, or to do bookkeeping. So that's why we are needed. They would rather be serving guests than taking pictures of receipts. So I'll try to give them the benefit of the doubt. They do what they're good at and we do what we're good at.
I don't think anybody went into business to take pictures of receipts and do accounting, except for the accounting firms and you.
It's a good opportunity for us. Nobody wants to do it.
Nobody wants to do. Honestly, I don't even want to do it. I don't blame them.
I get sick of it myself sometimes. Yeah.
So I know you're familiar with Profit First, and you've got clients who use Profit First. How do they tend to do because they're using Profit First?
That's right. I mean, I don't think about it a ton, but now that you asked me, we were talking about it earlier. I think my most profitable, my most successful, my most organized clients are the ones that are using Profit First. Creates more work for us, right? Having multiple bank accounts to reconcile, but it's not that bad though. It's to them. Those are the clients that never run out of cash, right? They never pay themselves because they think they've got more money in the bank than they really do. Because most of that money in the bank is their customers' money, and not really theirs. But Profit First guys don't run into that problem typically. That I don't know. They seem smarter, right?
I think it creates the boundaries so you know what you need to stay within. You know how much you have to spend. You know what the purpose of that money is. And as long as you can stick to that, it's simple. And it's not that hard. And if you said you're going to do X and you do X, usually the results are pretty good. It's when you say you're going to do X and you do something else, you get offline. Because as you said, we're all busy doing what we love to do to serve clients. We're not paying attention to this. And
yeah,
I'm not going to make comments about your bookkeeping services, but for most businesses, by the time the bookkeeping's done, it's long past when you got to make decisions on where your money's going today. And Profit First is real time. Like, exactly how much money you got today to make decisions in this moment.
Yeah. I will say we're very fast, but yes, I know what you mean. If you can wait, a week and a half, 2 weeks to make that decision, then our financials you'll have them. But yeah, I see what you mean. But yeah, if you can, I said they're smart, but really they're just following a set of rules, right? If they're good rule followers, then they can implement Profit First and stay within those boundaries.
Most business owners aren't good rule followers, but you got to follow this rule if you want to have cash, right? Because as you said, they have excess cash, and now it's not always perfect, but overall, that's what I've seen too. You tend to have success when you follow the system.
Right. I agree.
So what are some of the biggest issues you see with your bookkeeping clients?
Everyone we get needs some level of cleanup job. Like, we've never been taken over a client and just been handed over a perfectly clean set of books, right? Every single one of them is varying in difficulty, but they all need accounts payable cleanup, accounts receivable cleanup. So tons of issues. Like, those are the two I go look at first, right? Because if you've got unpaid bills on your AP showing from 3 years ago, you're either not paying anybody and you wouldn't be in business, or, there's duplicates, right? Or there's bad data. So same with accounts receivable. You got open invoices from 3 years ago. You either have terrible customers and you need to evaluate that, or you've got duplicates and your accounting's screwed up and you're looking at your financials with bad data, right? Which is useless. So, yeah.
And that could very well affect how much you're paying in taxes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you have a tax accountant that is a little bit disengaged with the bookkeeping part of your business and not, verifying that the books are in order and they're just filing your taxes, they're making bad assumptions, right? So, yeah, you could be paying more in taxes if you're showing more in income. Yeah, there's a lot that can go wrong.
There is. And it's funny because I think I know business owners struggle with the idea of paying bookkeepers and seeing the value of it. But at the end of the day, if you can't understand your financials, then you're not going to run your business well. How do you handle that? Because I know that that's a constant thing that comes up. Like,
Yeah, I had a sales call earlier today, and he doesn't have a bookkeeper. He's doing it himself, but he's got a tax accountant that, it's like the once a year type tax accountant that they file their taxes, and they might clean up the books at the time that they file the taxes, but that's a 6 months or longer sometimes after the previous year has been closed out, right? So how have you been making decisions, last year and ever since then on how your company's doing? You don't know until your tax accountant has done your taxes. Like, then it's way too late. You might be out of business by that point. So, like, without a good bookkeeper, you're not getting good monthly financials, right? Your tax return might be accurate, but that's way after the fact.
do you think people look at their monthly financials?
The successful ones do. I do.
Do you help them go over it and explain to them what's happening, or you just deliver the reports?
Both. It depends on the client and their level of understanding. Some people, it would be like a slap in the face if I tried to explain it to them because they understand it, right? But others, they want more of that hand holding, and for those, we do it.
Do you find that most of them do understand it, or most of them need the hand holding?
Most of them need the hand holding, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say more than 50% of our clients don't understand how the P&L and balance sheet work together, potentially a work in progress report, a cash flow statement. Of course, no one understands that. But yeah, most of them want that hand holding.
And I'll be honest, I don't like QuickBooks cash flow statement. I don't think it gives me very much worthwhile information. We create our own forward-looking cash flow statements. And for especially my builders and anyone in the construction space or anyone who's got longer term projects, we can sit and look at the cash flow statement and they know today how the rest of this year is going to go. We can pretty much predict with certainty what the next 3 to 6 months, at least the next 3 months, look like, and out to the next 6 months. And most of them spend a whopping 10 to 15 minutes a month just updating it. So it's not like it takes forever. They sit down, they update it. And once they update it, they also can then update their construction schedules and everything else. Because if they try to move stuff around, if they understand the impact to cash of changing the schedule, they're smarter in how they change the schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool.
Plus, when we start to do that, they start to realize, hey, wait a minute, my schedule for payments is not in alignment with my schedule for costs. And so then we have to go back and rewrite new contracts so that they're always getting money ahead of the expenses that are coming in. And then this way, they're always cash flow positive and they don't have to worry about it.
Gotcha. You're talking about fixed draws based off of the schedule, not, like at this first phase of the business, at this phase of the project, you're paying us this much.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be builders. Like I have people who build websites, same concept, different industry, right? But it's the same thing. Hey, X to start. These are the progression dates. These are when payments are due. And I think you see it more on that side. When you build a house, all the decisions are made up front. But when you're building a website, there's decision points along the way. And if the client doesn't answer you for a month, your whole project gets on hold. We change our contract to say, you're going to pay us regardless of whether you answer us, because we need to keep our cash flow going. So again, it's the same concepts. It doesn't matter what the business is. You've got to set your contracts to make sure that you get paid when you need to get paid so you can pay your bills.
Yeah, it's good. I like it.
And part of that, though, is also setting the right price. So I know you work with your clients on getting higher margins and also how to set pricing. So what is it that you do?
Yeah, I mean, so it's different based off of the type of work that they're doing, right? If a builder is building a $2 million house, they can't charge the same markup as a remodeler doing a $100,000 kitchen, So first off, you got to know that the $100,000 kitchen should get a higher margin than the $2 million new construction. So it should have a higher markup. But, we try to do things like including more things above the line, is what it's called. Right. So like more of your overhead being factored into your proposal, whether the customer.
So give me some examples of like when you say more of your overhead.
Yeah. So like whether your customer knows about it or not, try to include your overhead for like your salaries, your employees, whoever's going to be working on the job, even if they're working on multiple different jobs, include a percentage of their pay into this project, right? Even though it's not a hard cost against that job, or it may or may not be, and then like your insurance, and then really any of your overhead. Like if you know what your overhead is and you like to do 10 jobs at a time, put 10% of your overhead and all of your costs to the job, even if it's not tied to the job, that was a simple way of calculating it.
And so just so everyone's clear, think of overhead is all the money you're going to spend, even if nothing happens, right? You still got to pay the phone bill. You still got to pay the heat. You still got to pay the rent. If you've got employees that are on payroll and you're paying them regardless of the amount of work coming in, well, they're overhead. And it could be your bookkeeper. It could be other different roles in the company that while they're not directly attributable to the project, you got to pay all their salaries. That's all overhead. It's that total amount.
And so part of, you might say like, well, that's included in my markup, and you would be accurate. But part of it is like, can be psychology and how you're presenting your proposals to your clients. Is all the client might get fixated on is that whatever that markup is. If they're comparing you to a competitor, they might say, oh, he's cost plus 15%, but this guy's cost plus 18%. I'm going to go with the cost plus 15% guy. But what if the 15% guy had all this overhead included before the markup, and he might be making more money than the 18% guy,
You're right. And I will tell you what I found, especially from the higher priced builders, because they know this. They'll go, I'll do cost plus 12. And the guy goes, you got the job. Every change order is where they make all their money back. And on $1 million house, there's lots of change orders. And so there's a game being played at every level. You got to understand the games and you got to define the game before you do your contract. You can't just say 12, 15, 18, because that's only one small piece of the puzzle. Yeah. There's a whole lot of other things going on that you should be aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you need to know like how many jobs on average you're going to be doing, right? Is cost plus 15% going to work if we're doing 3 jobs, or does that only work if we're doing 10 jobs? Can't just throw out a number, right? Everything's got to be played out with a scenario.
It does. In understanding. So I find most entrepreneurs are extremely positive people. They're all like, no, we're going to do 20 jobs. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. But you also have to test it. So if we only do 5 jobs, what does it look like? If we do 10 jobs, what does it look like? If 15, what does it look like? And so by knowing the range, you get a better chance of doing that. But you also build your business to be flexible. So people are always like, well, when do I hire? Or when do I grow? And we try to grow to make sure we can do the minimum consistently. And then we try to have flexibility for the surges so that you're not building a surge business and then you have minimal. And then all of a sudden you're like, I can't pay my bills. Well, of course not. You built a business for this level of sales and you only have half as much. Yeah. And let's face it, more and more, it's a roller coaster out there, depending on what's going on in the economy.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So along with that, we've also talked about this, but reminding people about value pricing. How does that work in what you're seeing?
So my firm, we personally operate off of value pricing. So not just, we don't bill hourly. We think that is of the past. That's just our opinion. And it's more of the traditional CPA and traditional professional service model. We believe in value pricing. We're trying to think, what value does the client see from what we're offering? We're not trying to gouge people, and we're cheaper than most actually. We have a blended burden rate in our employees. We have different employees working on different levels of tasks. And so there's a lot that goes into our pricing, I guess, but you're ultimately trying to figure out what value does the client see in what we're providing, not just strictly how much does it cost to do this work. Right. And so you have to come up with it in a way where everybody wins, right? The client wins because they don't want to overpay, but you got to win as a business too, and make the profit that you need to make. I don't know if I explained that well, but that was from that was from my firm standpoint. But from like we keep going back to builders. That's like 80% of our business is builders. So for them, you're doing smaller jobs. You don't necessarily want to do cost plus on those, right? Because they're small, and your client's focusing on that markup, like we just talked about. But on those, you could do them on a fixed price, and customer doesn't necessarily have to know every single line item price, right? They just want to know, wow, you can build me this kitchen for $30,000. Yes, I want it. They don't have to know that it only costs you $8,000.
And I don't fuss over and itemize. Like we just today, the guy came to finish cleaning and staining our deck. And just give me a number. And I'll look at the number and go, yeah, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? I don't want to hear about the price of a gallon of paint. I don't want to hear that you calculated it right or wrong. Like, give me a number. I'll find it agreeable or unagreeable. Here you go. Let's have a wonderful day. Yeah. And that's just the reality of it. And I think a lot of people are like that. People don't like uncertainty. And when you start doing all these things, it creates uncertainty in your client's mind. When you tell them, hey, this is what it is, and this is the price, and that's the way. So for us, we do what we call a flat monthly price for our services.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if they call me 6 times or 1 time.
Right.
Because it's the same. So they know that they can always pick up the phone. They know that if I tell them, hey, we should look at this, it's not, hey, we should look at this, and by the way, it's extra. It's like, hey, we should look at this because it makes sense. And we're going to cover it because we told you we're going to cover it. And so from that standpoint, we're all going the same direction instead of fighting each other constantly.
Right. That's exactly how we are.
And I think that's helpful, especially, and you also have to do it in such a way, though, that you can cover mistakes. Because if things do go wrong, you have to eat it. And so you can't be constantly pricing and not covering that as well.
Yeah. You have to be confident in what you do, right? And, what all it's going to take to get it done. You said it well with the uncertainty comment. Like, I meant to mention that. Like, people hate the hourly billing. It's like, okay, great. Your hourly rate sounds great, but they don't know it's going to take you 100 hours.
Correct. And that is the other half of it. I don't care. Like, I'm going to use their hourly rate as a judge, but I also want to know, like, what do you think it's going to take for this? Now, my listeners might not know that I actually know how to pick up a hammer, right? I know spreadsheets, and I know what it takes to redo a bathroom. And I can look at the numbers and go, yeah, you got too many hours in this project. I mean, let's face it, it's going to take a week. You go, okay, that's 40 hours. No, the builder shows up for 3 hours, he demos it, and then he leaves, right?
Yeah.
Comes back the next day, works for 2 hours in the morning, goes away, comes back. Like, it's not really 40 hours of work. And you got to understand what's reality and what's not. And the other thing, we talk about this, especially with attorneys and professionals, and you know this well, and we'll talk about this in a second. When you can optimize, right, the hourly rate is no longer reasonable. Meaning I can do in 1 hour what it might take somebody 10 hours to do. Right. So if we're both charging $100 an hour, is that fair to me or to them? Right. you're probably overpaying them and you're underpaying me.
Right.
But that's because I learned how to optimize, systematize, and deliver super efficiently.
Yeah.
And that comes into it as well.
Yeah. It's like, can't remember the example, like an engineer, I think we talked to one time when I used to work for directly for a construction company. And he was like saying he's going to charge, like $280 an hour or something. And we're like, whew, man. He was like, well, that doesn't cover, the 15 years in school where I learned how to do all this that no one else can do. And, that's similar to what you're saying. It's different, but it's similar. But yeah, why would I shoot myself in the foot if I can do it 10 times faster than the next guy and charge you the same hourly rate? No,
Or I might have a tech stack behind me that allows me to do it 10 times faster because I've automated the entire process.
Yeah.
So I remember years ago, actually, I think in my whole life, I've only had one bookkeeping client. I still have them. It's our HOA. It's funny because I do the books for them. When I first started doing them, like when we had to do the billing, it used to take me 10 or 12 hours to do the billing. And that's because we had to go in and enter every transaction manually to every single homeowner. Then we had to print them. Then we had to stuff every envelope, right? Then we had to stamp every envelope and fold it and do like that all takes time. Today, that whole thing is automated where I can literally do the whole billing inside of about 15 minutes. And then I email it to a company that actually mails it to everybody. And they literally charge me less than if I bought envelopes, put postage on them, stuffed them and the copies
really?
And everything. Oh, yeah. But it took us forever to figure out and implement that system.
Yeah.
And because of that, now my efficiency has gone through the roof, but I spent hours building it, learning it, and doing it.
Yeah.
And I know you've done the same. So you use a ton of technology in your business. Let's just talk a little bit, like what is available out there and how's it helped you?
Yeah. It's a great segue, by the way. So natural from last topic to this one, but yeah, it's hard to even know where to start because we use so much technology. But we have our own app that I created. It's similar to what you're just talking about. I mean, I've spent thousands of hours creating an app that makes our clients' bookkeeping so much more efficient for them. But for any small business, the obvious one is QuickBooks Online to me. There's just by far the best option for accounting. And then, for automating accounts payable, you've got Melio. We use that. Bill.com would be another one, but Melio is much simpler to use for small business. And then invoicing, be interested to hear if you have any other ones that you could list other than what the billing that you just talked about. But personally at our firm, we use Rotessa, which just auto collects ACHs from our customers.
QuickBooks does that too.
Tell me more.
We'll talk after the recording. But yeah, there are so many things out there that it becomes overwhelming. Before we hit record today, I talked to you about a new tool that I just found out about, which is called Right Tool for QuickBooks.
Yeah.
You already knew about it. I just learned about it when I was at ProfitCon. Here's the thing. Right Tool probably saves me 5 minutes per client. Not a ton. It takes my aggravation level down a notch. So that alone is worth it. It's free because I don't need any of the fancy features of it. So just by adding this little thing, I'm like, ooh, this is so much easier, faster, for me.
Yeah.
And it's finding those things. And what I have found is until you have conversations like this, you don't realize what other people are doing and how they're doing it to optimize. And more and more you learn about it and you have these conversations, the more and more you can find a tool to help you do things better. Now, I know you use Zapier. I've never really figured out how to use Zapier because I haven't put the time and effort into it. But tell us what Zapier is and kind of what it does.
Yeah. So Zapier is it's an automation platform is the simplest way of putting it, but it can connect pretty much any app in the world out there to another app in the world. So like, let's say something happens in QuickBooks, like a trigger like happens, like a new customer is created in QuickBooks, and you need that customer's info to be in another app like Airtable. As soon as it happens in QuickBooks, I mean, literally within 10 seconds, that same customer can be in Airtable with the same information, so you can use it in another part of your business, right? So it's helpful if you need to, like the accounting team has access to QuickBooks, but you need operations team to have access to the same customer base, right? In a tool like Airtable. Or let's say you get a email from somebody and it's coming from a specific lead source, and you need that to become a marketing contact in HubSpot automatically. You know, it happens with Zapier. I think there's a free plan, but I pay for like the one where you can get like the premium apps on it too. Like it's not that much. It's not very expensive at all. Zapier. I'm trying to think of other examples of what it can do. Like, you know, we use ClickUp for project management. And so like, let's say when we close a task in ClickUp, we need an email to be sent out to, you know, our client, letting them know that it was done or something. Zapier would be able to do that automatically as soon as you close the task.
By the way, if you don't know what all these softwares are, that's step one. Understanding how much is out there to make your life easier and to be able to do these different things. There are so many tools that I think you don't have to have people doing routine stuff. If you're doing routine stuff like copying things from one system to another, and like those days are gone, you really need to automate that whole sequence.
Right.
Because it can be done and just either you do it or you find somebody to do it for you.
Yeah. I would say the most powerful apps we're using would be Zapier, and we also use make.com, but it's like the more robust version of Zapier, like kind of harder to learn than Zapier.
Never heard of it.
And then Airtable, critical to my business. Critical. Couldn't do what I do without it.
What is Airtable? Because a lot of people may not know.
It's like a spreadsheet on steroids. It's like you took Excel, but converted it to like a database that's very easy to use, because it's like a spreadsheet that can have relationships to other spreadsheets. But I'm not even doing it justice by saying that. It's like, it's a database is what it is though. But it's a database that is accessible to everyday people like you and me, like not just programmers.
And I don't use Airtable, but if I wanted to, I could use Airtable. And so that when I sent you an invite to be on this podcast, you would upload your picture and it would have your picture, your bio, your links, all of that stuff would get uploaded into Airtable. At the same point, you make the calendar invite, like all of that stuff could get automated together. And then everything is in one place. So now I'm not searching everywhere for all this stuff. And I don't know, did he do it? Did he not do it? All of that stuff.
Right.
It's all just part of the system that you don't get to book on my show until you do what you're supposed to do. And I don't have to follow up. And so it just makes it so much easier. And then my editor could grab everything from there. Yeah. So all of these different things are out there. And I think the idea is go figure out what works for you and build your systems and processes to do the stuff you hate doing. So where do you start? You start with the things you hate doing most, and you figure out how to automate them. And that's literally what you do.
Yeah. I agree with that.
So if people would like to learn more about you, find out about your bookkeeping services, where should they go?
Yeah, it's funny. We kind of have three brands going on because we work with builders and Chick-fil-A's, but we also work with small businesses and nonprofits. So if you're a builder, go to builderbookkeep.com. If you're a Chick-fil-A listening to this, go to missionfinancial.co. But if you're a small business or a nonprofit, go to upaccounting.com.
You're going to have to figure out how to put that all in one place and let people pick where they're going.
I know.
People can't remember all of that.
It needs to be like MillerBradford.com, and then from there you're routed to the type of business that you are. But
there you go.
The primary spot is upaccounting.com. for sure.
All right. We'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks. See ya.
So what do you need to change in your business? Is it pricing? Is it your contract payment terms? The way you bill and collect? Is there new technology you can use to implement to make all of this easier? Because you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. Tech is one way. And let's remember to focus on the bottom line.
If you'd like for us to be a part of your profitability journey, we have different programs available ranging from do-it-yourself to one-on-one coaching. Our course, The Profit Blueprint, teaches you everything you need to know to transform your profitability. There are 3 different tiers ranging from DIY to done with you so that businesses of all sizes can get the support that's best. Join the waitlist in the show notes to get more information and be a part of the next cohort. If you want a done-for-you service, you can hire us as your chief profitability officers. We only work with a handful of clients, so they all get our full attention. We work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $10 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on our calendar for a good fit conversation to see if we're the right people to support you and how we can help you.
Remember to check out my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we talk about how to live the ultimate life and be the best business owner you can be. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.